Now to a very puzzling news story about Cardinal George Pell, one that raises questions like what role have police played in influencing public opinion about Pell by giving the media private information about him. In fact, have they leaked details of a tapped phone call? Now, Cardinal Pell, as you know, was found guilty and jailed over the abuse of two choir boys in Melbourne St Patrick's Cathedral right after Mass. A jury believed that Pell had somehow slipped out of the processional that's held right after Mass, unseen by the senior priest who accompanied him everywhere. He then, the jury believed, found the two choir boys in an open and usually busy room and sexually abused them both with the door open. And then both the boys and Pell somehow slipped back to the processional, and again without anyone noticing. And all this happened even though one of the boys, now dead, later told his mother that he hadn't been abused at all. Now, as I've said, these and other details make me amazed that a jury convicted Pell regardless, beyond reasonable doubt. So no wonder Pell is appealing that verdict. But you may well ask whether the hatred of Pell that has been stirred up for so long by the media, did that maybe affect the jury's judgment? And were police involved? Because here is something suspicious. That priest who was supposed to follow Pell everywhere is Monsignor Charles Portelli. Now, he gave evidence in the trial that Pell did not slip away at all. This crime could not have happened. Now, Portelli was later surprised, indeed astonished, to read in the New Daily this story by journalist Lucy Morris-Marr, who'd originally broken the news that Pell were indeed investigating, the police were indeed investigating Pell for sexual abuse. Now, in her latest report on February 26, Morris-Marr wrote, and I'm quoting, "A tearful Cardinal George Pell was comforted by a key witness in his child abuse trial on the night following his shock guilty verdict. A source told the New Daily the Cardinal had dinner at a friend's house in Melbourne with Monsignor Charles Portelli, just hours after a jury handed down its unanimous verdict at the county court. Quote, Pell got quoted quite emotional at the simple dinner at a friend's house and was actually apologising to Portelli for getting him into the mess of the court case and effectively being dismissed as a liar," the source said. This report, as I said, astonished Monsignor Portelli, who joined me a short while ago. Monsignor Charles Portelli, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Let me go through this story, which the New Daily has since removed from their website after you contacted them with your concerns. First, did you go to dinner with George Pell at the Melbourne House of Friends after the jury had found him guilty?
No, I did not.
But did you have a conversation whose contents seem similar to the one described in the paper?
There was a conversation. It was held 3 weeks before the verdict, so that would be November the 22nd, the day I finished giving testimony.
And this conversation, did it include the sort of phrases that were repeated, like George Pell apologising?
He apologised to me because the prosecution had tried to do to me what they had done to the witness before me, the former sacristan of the cathedral, who is 85 years old. They had tried to bamboozle him with dates and secondary questions and so on. The Cardinal apologised to me by saying, "I'm sorry they tried to do the same to you."
Now, this conversation, so it is the same conversation, did you have it in person, at a dinner, maybe not on the date that was described in the paper and some other?
No, the conversation was via the telephone. The Cardinal rang me on his mobile, and he rang my mobile.
So this is a conversation actually held over the phone?
Yes.
Were the witnesses present on either end?
No, there was no one.
So it's a private phone call held on the phone and the details appear in a newspaper. Did you reveal yourself the conversation to Lucy Morris-Marr or anyone who might be close to her, or did George Pell do the same?
I've never spoken to Lucy Morris-Marr. I know who she is, but I've never spoken to her, nor to anyone in that circle.
So when you saw a conversation held on the phone in private, the details in a newspaper, or some details, were you surprised?
I was, because the conversation as reported in the newspaper was reported as direct speech.
Obviously by someone purporting to have heard it.
Well, it was in inverted commas, and I presume that means direct speech.
That's rather curious. Now, obviously we're not accusing Lucy Morris-Marr of bugging a phone. I'm absolutely certain she did not. But whoever spoke to her or passed on a message to someone who did speak to her must have been bugging the phone. Who do you think that might have been?
I can't say.
You would assume perhaps the Victoria Police.
That is possible, I presume.
That's the only lawful authority that I would imagine that could have done this.
Yes. I do know, for instance, it came out in the Royal Commission that the Cardinal's phone had been tapped during the course of the Royal Commission.
Now, obviously we can't speculate. I mean, I've asked the Victoria Police for a response to this. We can't speculate. We don't know who did this or why, but what effect do you think might have been achieved by the leaking of this phone call in the form that it appeared in the newspaper? What do you think?
Well, my complaint to the editor of the New Daily was that, at best, the article was mischievous, but at worst, it was an attempt to say that my evidence to the court was somehow influenced by my relationship with the Cardinal. Because, for instance, the way the article was presented, it said that the Cardinal was tearful in apologising. Now, the implication there is that he knows he's guilty, and he apologised for dragging me into this mess. There was no such apology.
In part because the Cardinal does not think he's guilty.
Of course.
And do you think he's guilty?
No, I don't. I mean, for instance, one of the charges of which he was convicted is that he assaulted the choir boy a month after the first attack, well, actually 2 months after, and it was established in court that I was present.
This was in a corridor where you were with him, and the allegation is that, and the jury accepted
I
it.
and 70 other people.
It's 70 other people in a corridor, that George Pell suddenly lunged at the boy and molested him while you're just all standing around.
To do so, he would have had to push in front of me. So,
and you didn't see any such thing, obviously.
No, I didn't.
Well, Charge Portelli, I've asked the police for a response. I will give it if I get it to the audience. But thank you so much indeed for your time.
Thank you.
I did, in fact, get a response from Victoria Police. I asked them, did they tap George Pell's phone? And did some officer then release information to or indirectly to the media about that call? And I've had this official response. We do not provide comment on police methodology. This information has been passed on to the Victoria Police Professional Standards Command for further assessment. It seems they maybe don't like this either. We will follow this up. As for the author of that article, Lucy Morris-Marr, she tells me the details of this conversation did not come from Victoria Police sources, and the notion that the conversation she reported was being bugged is rather ridiculous and far-fetched. Really. The mystery then remains. Who could possibly have overheard this private telephone call? After the break, the Great Barrier Reef expert, who the federal court yesterday said was sacked unlawfully by his university for criticising global warming alarmists.